Hello and welcome to Ph06 video lessons. Today I'm going to be talking about what makes your heart to beat. So we may think that is love, we may think that is emotions, but actually what makes our heart to beat is electric impulses. So the heart is a muscle and muscles require some sort of electric signal to be able to contract. In the case of muscles all over our body, what makes a muscle to contract is an electric impulse reaching the muscle from a nerve that's usually coming from the spinal cord or from the brain. But in the case of the heart, things are different. The heart is not dependent on nerves to be able to receive this electric signal. This electric signal is not going to be coming from your brain. It's not going to come from your spinal cord. It's actually going to be generated in the heart itself. The heart has a modified piece of muscle over here called sinoatrial node, also known as SAN. This sinoatrial node is a modified muscle that instead of receiving electric impulse and contracting, it does a kind of weird contraction movement, or whatever you want to call it, and it generates electricity. So the electricity of the heart is generated by itself. And by this we say that the electric impulse of the heart is myogenic because generated by the muscle. Myo means muscle, like myocardium, the muscle of the heart. So this case is myogenic, generated by the muscle itself. The electric impulse then travels through the muscle and it makes the muscle to contract. But it travels through the atria, both atria, left and right, and it doesn't cross a barrier that you have in between the atria and the ventricle. So this barrier here is not crossed, so it makes the atria to contract first, but not the ventricle. And then the impulse reaches another node. This one here doesn't generate a pace, but it repeats the signal that has been received by the AVN, the atrioventricular node, and this one is called atrioventricular node or AVN. And the AVN then is going to be creating another impulse, repeating the impulse, which will travel through the muscle fibers all over the ventricle, making the ventricle to contract after the age. So the heart contracts atrium first, ventricle second, and because of its impulse that have been generated in the heart itself. What's interesting is that the heart can beat by itself no matter what. If I take the heart from your chest and put in my hand, your heart will stay beating. No nerve, no hormones, no nothing, and the heart still beats. It will beat until, of course, it dies from lack of oxygen or lack of glucose, because it will be disconnected from the blood that will be keeping it alive, but it will still beat for a while. And if you cool it down, it can stay there very, very with a low metabolism, not consuming much stuff, and then you can take it, for example, for a transplant. So transplantation happens when you take the heart that stays alive. It doesn't need anything to beat. It beats by itself. If it's warm enough, it will beat once every second, about 60 times per minute. Okay, so this here was the impulse, and let's put here some information to make you remember this stuff. So sinoatrial node is the one that generates the electric impulse, the myogenic electric impulse, one of them per second. Okay, this myogenic impulse generated by the muscle then is going to be spreading through the atrium. The SAN stimulates the atria to contract, and the SAN ends up stimulating the atrioventricular node. The atrioventricular node then repeats the signal, is spreading electricity through the ventricle, which will make the ventricle to contract. Just to illustrate here for you, I will put this here for you to see. We have there on the top right corner of the heart the sinoatrial node generating an impulse, and boom, you have there electricity being generated. You have the beginning of the EKG going up over there. So that's the impulse being spread through the atria, and it's spreading and spreads and spread. The atria just contracted, and you had a signal here. This was the signal that stimulated and also represents the heart atrium being contracted. The AVN receives it and starts sending a signal around, so you have there a little bit of electricity being generated, and woo, spreads the signal around the ventricles. The ventricles contract and then relax again, and this was the contraction of the heart with this impulse. Let's go back to the beginning here so you can see it again. So I'll pass this fast so you can see. The sinoatrial node contracting the atrium, the atrioventricular node being stimulating and sending signal and making the ventricle to be contracted. So are you ready? 3, 2, 1, and there. This is how it goes. Okay. So basically, and this here is the EKG, which has a big peak, which is the ventricle contracting, but now you have all this way going over there. Okay. Did you notice the SAN generating impulse? It spread electricity to the atrium. I hope you did. Did you see the AVN reacting to the signal that got into there? Spread it around? Yes, I hope you did. And did you notice the myocardium that it was reacting and kind of contracting? I hope you did. If you didn't, we have opportunity to see this again later. Okay. Sometimes the pacemaker of the heart, the sinoatrial node, it doesn't work very well. Sometimes people have an irregular heartbeat, or the heartbeat's not fast enough, or has any kind of problem, and we end up putting artificial pacemakers into the person's heart. So this here is a representation of an artificial pacemaker. This here is the generator that generates the impulse. We have electrodes that go all the way there, and they force the heart to be contracting when the myogenic nodes are not doing their job properly. So we have that in there. We'll talk more about that. Just for you to see here an image, we have a pacemaker, the generator there on the left, going down over here, and that's it. That's an artificial pacemaker. Okay. As I just mentioned you in the video, the heart impulse is myogenic. The electric impulse is myogenic, generated by the heart itself. So who controls the heartbeat? The heart itself. The heart itself is going to be making a healthy heart to pump about once a second, 60 times per minute. So the sinoatrial node generates the heart impulse. So it's the myogenic generated by the muscle itself is not being generated by nerves. So this 1 beat per minute, what's the usual 1 beat per second, 1 BPS, not BPM, 1 beat per second, 60 beats per minute is going to be the typical heartbeat of a healthy person. However, you know that sometimes the heart rate changes. So there are things that can change the heart rate. So hormones, for example, adrenaline, or also known as epinephrine, it can stimulate the heart to beat faster. So adrenaline, for example, can speed up the heart, and as soon as you release adrenaline into your body, your heart starts beating faster, 80, 90, 100, 120, 140, 150 beats per minute. So your heart controls its own beats, but it can be modulated, it can be changed by hormones like epinephrine. And additionally, it also receives impulse from nerves. The nerves don't make the heart to contract, but it can modulate the heart to contract. So the medulla oblongata, which is the bottom part here of your brain, it can regulate the heart contraction, making you to beat faster or slower. If you see a threat, your sympathetic nervous system is going to say, hey, there's a danger, speed up the heart rate, let's get ready for running. And if it realizes that it's not such a big deal, it's not something very important, relax, calm down, it's going to be sending a signal saying, yeah, go back to the basal, go back to normal, don't need to be so excited and so fast. Okay, so they may speed up or they may slow down the heart rate. So the sympathetic nervous system, it speeds up the heart rate, the parasympathetic nervous system It slows down the heart rate. It's a way of changing the heart rate depending on your brain and also depending on hormones. Without hormones, without the brain, your heart's going to be beating at a basal rate, which is going to be about 60 beats per minute. Okay? I hope you have enjoyed. Take your time to do a little bit of a quiz, and I'll see you in class. Bye bye.